All right. We'll go ahead and get started.
One person back.
I mean, this is not a review.
Do you guys feel like you need a microphone? No, we're okay without a microphone. I think, we're a smaller group this time. There's lots of reasons for that, but thank you so much for coming. We're going to try and kind of take a different path than we did in the last two workshops last year. But again, a lot of this is going to be 20 to 30 minutes, hopefully at least maybe 40 minutes of workshopping together ideas, because the transfer advocacy program is still one that we're building it as we're flying the plane. So that's why you're here, to help build it as we fly it. So thanks for coming. Does everyone in here know each other? No? Okay, awesome. Can we just go around and do introductions real quick? I'm Terry Rodriguez, and I'm a professor in the education department. This is my 10th year here at St. Vincent St. John's.
You gotta say that.
Terry Durbin, I'm in the admission office and I work specifically with transfer students, and this is my 30-something year here. We'll leave it at that. 32, I think. 12. You're fine. 12. I'm also an alum, and our daughter's an alum, so I've got lots of connections as a parent, as an alum, and as a staff.
Mary Jo Layton, I'm in the education department. This is my 30th year on campus, but 26 were at the prep school.
I'm John Kendall. I'm English, and I'm 28 years old. Plus or minus. No, this is my 24th year.
Robert Campbell, I'm in the math department. I have been here 10, 11 years. I don't remember.
Yeah, same here, right?
So, I'm not really good with numbers.
You're 10.
I'm Steve. I'm chair of the accounting and finance department. This is my 15th year.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I'm in the study, which is a couple months old. And I've been around 21 years, mostly in academic department.
And I'm Mary Beth Thompson. I'm in the registrar's office now, previously in residential life and working with a high in between. And I've been around campus about 21 years as well.
Kelly, I'm in the communication department, and this is my 21st year.
Yvette South, I'm in the English department. This is my 9th year.
I'm Kristen Colberg. I teach in theology. I am in my 9th or 10th year.
I'm Pedro Dos Santos, political science, and I attended 5 or 6. I also can't remember now. 5 or 6 years.
I'm Laura Hammond. I work at XP. I'm also a college success instructor, and I've been here 10 years. I do dunk tanks.
I'm Ethan Aronson. I'm an alum. I've been here 5 years, and I was a transfer student as well. And I work at XPD, and I also teach at the first year of college success.
Awesome, thank you. I think that's a really interesting point to bring up, that you were a transfer student yourself. I know there are other people in this group who are passionate about this because they were transfer students. How many of you were transfer students yourselves? Awesome. Okay, good. So I think it's important to draw on that experience. And the other thing that I really noticed as you're talking is the wealth of experience that we have, that we bring to help transfer students, facilitate their transition here. So thank you for sharing that. We do have a PowerPoint ready for you to go, so I'm just going to scroll through a couple of pages. Okay. Today we're hoping to continue every single workshop we've had so far. That's the primary goal, is to help increase our knowledge and awareness of transfer student experiences on our campus. And while we recognize that transfer students, we can read the literature and see what's happening across the country and at other institutions, but we really want to be aware of who our students are and what they're saying to us. So the second part of that is to continue developing, what we started last year, developing both individual based on you and your role in your department or your office, and then the institutional goals, like contributing to giving advice to where we're going to put our resources in terms of supporting transfer students. And then I use the word codify today because I really want to get these steps kind of more solidly, concretely, like in writing, to say, for example, I am a transfer advocate. Like, I'd love for you to have a t-shirt or a hat that says, I'm a transfer advocate, to codify it. And then for you to feel really comfortable. I'd like you to leave today feeling comfortable telling everyone, I'm a transfer advocate and this is what it means. This is what I do. So that's kind of the goal. That's what I mean by codify. So I think there are opportunities, and everyone has a different role in terms of working with students, and then some responsibilities that you're agreeing to take on because you're passionate about working with transfer students. Okay. So outcomes, I'm in education, so like we have to write objectives and meet standards and do outcomes, and they're different from objectives, and but they're really similar. Everything in that I just said, this is like how you're going to lead. This is what you're going to know and be able to do, hopefully. And if you don't feel like you know and are able to do these things, then let's keep talking, okay? So today we're going to hear a little bit from Robert and Terry Durbin about the transfer pathways and the integrations curriculum updates in terms of how that applies to transfer students. Then we're going to hear from Teresa Anderson and John, talking about the study and Integrations 205 and how those kind of can provide academic supports and transitions for transfer students. We're going to hear from some transfer students again. I think that's a really important reason to come here today, is we're going to listen to their words telling us what they would like to have. We're going to try and work today on creating our own checklists. Again, like as a transfer advocate, here's what I do, okay? Here's what I want to do, here's what I will do. And that's what we'll do during that workshop, and then we'll get back together again. So just as a reminder from last year's workshops, we created the team site. Everyone is there on the team site. There are recordings, there are professional development resources if you want to read more about opportunities to learn about transfer students, the National, Terry, help me with this acronym again, National Institute for Study of Transfer Students?
I believe that's right.
Okay, awesome. But it's a huge, there's videos, there's professional development trainings, there's articles, there's blogs. Like you could probably spend a year of your sabbatical just learning more about the transfer student world. And then last year, one thing we ended up with were action plans where we had tried to identify gaps that we saw within our own departments and offices and set up some goals. And those are in the team site too, okay? So, Terry and Robert, do you want to talk a little bit about pathways? And we really want this to be a question and answer too. So feel free to ask questions as we go.
All right, so we have, as part of the TEGO grant that St. Ben's and St. John's had, and then the Minnesota Private College Council actually also has a TEGO grant, to do some academic planning development. We chose to work specifically, we partnered with St. Cloud Tech and Community College and with Bridgewater. We reached out to several schools, but those are the two that sort of agreed to partner with us, and started some initial conversations about building academic pathways, allowing students to find a way to develop a 2+2 curriculum. In reality, the bulk of our transfer students come from four-year schools, so it seems a little perhaps unusual that we would try to work with our two-year school partners. It is, the two-year school partnership does allow for a stronger 2+2 relationship that we can develop. Students who are going to those two-year schools are planning to transfer if they want to get their bachelor's degree. Students who are transferring to us from a four-year school are not going to that school thinking they're going to transfer or with that as a plan. It may happen for a variety of reasons. And we may have been on their list at some point in their process, but the pathways, the transfers pathways that we're developing allow us to help students be really intentional about that process. Let me go here, there may be family reasons why they don't want to start here, there may be financial reasons why they can't start here, but we can work with them to get them here for a portion of their career, and then successfully complete that bachelor's degree in hopefully in what looks like a 2+2 model or very close to that. One of the decisions that was made that makes this fairly possible, and you'll see it on, you've got two different pathways there, one for psychology and one for math. There are about 6 of them, I think, done now. And I'm happy to work on more if you have a department that wants to do that. But one of the things that really facilitated this was an agreement and decision to accept the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum or AA degree completion as meeting foundational courses in the integrations curriculum. It still leaves a fair number of courses in comparison to our private college partners, for students to complete here, but many of them can be wrapped into major courses or other upper division requirements. So it may look like more, it doesn't always mean it's more courses. It is maybe more skill development as parts of courses, or more of that layered learning that they're doing that processes information from one level to the next. But that was a huge thing, when we could say that we would accept a AA degree of the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum in whole, giving the students those 40 credits or 60 credits as long as they achieved the appropriate grade level. And then knocking off several requirements in the integrations curriculum that, quite frankly, the Minnesota Transfer Curriculum likely fulfills. It was honoring the work they were doing at the community college, recognizing they were learning at that level. While it wasn't maybe exactly how we teach it here, it does at least indicate to them we respect what they've done there. And I think that's important for a transfer student to know their work is respected and their effort in that process is respected. So hopefully that's helpful. You can see how that's broken down. This is simply a duplicated copy. They're much prettier when you see the red on there. They're easier to read. They're not so they don't look quite so text heavy as they do when they're just in black and white. But hopefully that gives you some information about how those pathways are built. This fall is the first year they've actually publicly been available on our website and are officially in place. We've been working on them. And like I said, I think psychology is done with 6 different community colleges so far, and he's working on hitting up all the Twin Cities community colleges now. So I anticipate psychology will be available as a 2+2 for nearly every community college in the state. The rest were really focused on St. Cloud and Ridgewater, 2 sites for Ridgewater, but making sure that we at least have some partnerships done, and then we'll go from there. So questions about those? Information that I can answer on what those look like? We also do a course-by-course evaluation. I have transfer guides for every community college in the state, where a student can go look at the course that they took at that community college and identify what integrations curriculum requirement it fulfills. So those are not written out as equivalencies. Quite frankly, most transfer students want an equivalency. They want to know exactly what course it fulfills. But at least with the integrations curriculum, they can identify what requirement they've checked off and know what they have remaining to complete. So, and I don't mean to speak for a transfer student, but I hear a lot about it. So, questions about any of that?
Yeah, and I don't know if this is the right time or not, but
No, fire away.
transferology, I know that was and it was one of those quick shutdown responses.
Yeah, no, transferology would be huge if we could get that. Quite frankly, so I said initially, the bulk of our transfer students come from other 4-year schools, and St. Thomas is probably the #1 school where we get transfer students from. Our Minnesota private charters, a lot of students are looking at Hamlin and St. John's and make the decision to go to Hamlin and then think about a transfer. The same would be the case with St. Thomas. We have students from St. Olaf, we have students from Augsburg, we have students from St. Kate's. So those are common. The University of Minnesota system, the in-state system, the 4-year schools, Winona, St. Cloud, some of those schools. And then we have students, I had 3 transfer students from the University of Denver this fall. Sort of an odd thing that would happen, but they all were Minnesota residents who went somewhere and then want to come back. Courses that they've taken at those 4-year schools, none of them are available for the student to find on their own, how we accept them and transfer. So transferology would alleviate some of that. It would make the process easier for students who like to do a lot of stealth work initially before engaging with someone. Students like to be able to determine what they can do and then realize it's feasible. Now I'm going to make that phone call or send that email message or text somebody where I have a phone number. So we're working on it. I'm hoping within the next, I'll optimistically say 12 months. I know it's high on the list. There is a cost associated with it and there is a staff cost associated with it, and those are probably the 2 biggest holdups. But they will be huge in terms of allowing students to figure out how courses transfer. 80 to 85% of our students come from 4-year schools when they're transferring. So that's a large percentage of that transfer population. It will also serve our PSEO students quite well, because many of them are taking courses, the PAC program at St. Mary's covers a lot of credits. The U of M does a lot of PSEO. St. Cloud State does a lot of PSEO, grant those credits, and so those students will also be able to gather that information. Good question. It was on my list to talk about, but I didn't know if I wanted to go there.
There you go.
Thanks, Ethan.
So, I was asked if I missed this because I thought this was a Zoom call. So, does anyone recruit transfers?
I do.
Okay, so how does that work?
So I travel to the community colleges around the state, set up a table, meet with their advising staff, let them know what we have available here. We'd like to work with their students. I engage with advising staff on Zoom calls. I set up office hours remotely if I can, so students can just call in and ask me questions. I meet with students on campus, all of those things. So when we do these pathway guides, they get sent out to the advisors and the psychology faculty, for example, at Ridgewater and St. Cloud, so they know that there's ways for their students to do a 2+2 option.
So would you know, going into a St. Cloud or Bridgewater, who the students were who were looking for more than that 2 years?
They have, most of the community colleges have a advisor who works with their, what they call their liberal arts students or their transfer students. So those students who are starting somewhere and looking to do a 2+2 to get to a 4-year degree.
Okay, so you would already have a potential pool of people, of recruits there.
Yeah, and then we set up tables for visibility because there may be other students who haven't engaged with an advisor at that community college that we still want to capture. So, yeah. Yeah, so I have been a one-person shop for many, many years doing transfer work. In all honesty and in all transparency, our numbers have not been so huge that I can't manage it. But when you look at strategizing and beginning to do some of this work and really developing stronger partnerships with the community colleges, and other things, I just can't do all of it. So one of our new staff members, Brett Watercott, was a transfer student that I worked with. He is going to take on some boots on the ground things with transfer. So he'll meet with visitors, he will review applications, and he will get out to the colleges. He's going to a few with me in January and February to begin that process. So there will be 2 of us working on transfer students. That'll be a plus. So, yeah, great questions. Thank you. Did I steal your thunder? Sorry.
No, not in the slightest. I wanted to support you. I just want to add, right, so Terry mentioned that with the psychology pathway, they're really starting to look at that for a lot more of the community colleges. And what really makes that work is the Minnesota transfer curriculum. This is something that was decided Minnesota-wide. All of the community colleges, it's just, this is how it works. It's a set curriculum for every single community college. So what we're doing is we're looking at it not at a specific institution, like what is SCTCC doing? We're looking at like, okay, if someone completes this, what are they getting, right? So once you've done this once, right, so I've done the math one, it's actually really easy to kind of scale it up. Most of that stuff is already in place. It's now just a question of, okay, I've done it for SCTCC. What are the Ridgewater math courses and how do they transfer? What are the whatever other colleges courses and how do they transfer? So getting that first one done is really straightforward if your students are completing the Minnesota transfer curriculum. The engineering one that we had done, we cheated that system because it's engineering and that's hard to mesh with a lot of other things. So we were more being very careful with what they were doing. So they're not actually completing the Minnesota transfer curriculum to get in enough of those base kind of engineering courses before they come here. Yeah. In terms of the integrations curriculum as well, the Senate a few months ago, I've lost all track of time at this point, has changed the way that the Integrations 105 is going to work for transfer students and Integrations 100. So transfer students are coming in from a wide range of stuff. Some of them are like, they've done 1 semester somewhere, it didn't really work out, they're transferring here. Some of them are doing 2 full years somewhere and coming in. So they're all kind of over the place. And we've just decided like, we're gonna treat them all the same in this regard. So they're gonna take this new Integrations 205 that is a mix of 105 and the kind of either 100 or 200. The math there doesn't really add up, but that's okay. I guess we'll not 105. But anyway, so we're going to assume that they have seen some amount of writing credit, even if they haven't. We're just going to blanket make that assumption for simplicity. And within that course, you have the objectives of Math 105, or not Math 105, Integrations 105, but then the metacognition and information literacy from Integrations 100, because those are significantly less common. And with things like information literacy, we want them connecting with our library and seeing how our system works, things like that. We're also looking to add a Raven to that course for a variety of reasons. One, to help them in terms of getting that curriculum piece done, but also that's a really solid introduction to like who we are. We're talking about the Benedictine values. It fits very naturally in terms of a course that's designed for welcome to St. Ben St. John's, here's who we are, right? So that is going to be a 2-credit course, which in general works fairly nice because then the students can do the typical 4 4-credit courses or 3 4-credit courses if they want, and then the 2 credits on top of that. So they should be in good shape in that way. I would also mention, so most transfer students are going to come in with just a weird hodgepodge of completion in the integrations curriculum, and they're kind of going to be all over the place. In general, they're working with the department chair of the major they're interested in. And what we find is the department chairs are always a little confused because they're like, wait, how do you have this advanced course, but you haven't done the basic course, and you've got this done without that done, and right? And it's just, they're coming in with some weird stuff, so they need a lot more hands-on in terms of kind of helping them through and finding the right courses. The last thing I wanted to add is, in terms of the integrations curriculum, I know there's been a lot of concern that transfer students are struggling to finish in a reasonable amount of time, which, depending on who you talk to, is going to be a different number of years, right? And what I'm finding is typically the bigger barrier is actually majors than integrations curriculum. And we have a lot of majors that have developed a really cool curriculum for our 4-year students, and it's really hard for transfer students to kind of jump into that. So I feel like a piece that to be thinking about is within departments, could we think about our curriculum in a mildly different way to accommodate transfer students coming in at kind of a different point, as opposed to, well, this is our curriculum, start from scratch, right? So actually, I've had a number of transfer students that I've worked with that have changed majors, even though, hey, this is what I want to do, but they're changing because it's shaving off an entire year to graduation. So, yeah. Questions on that? Yeah,
Just my observation as a department chair on this. It's not that we say, you have to complete the entire political science curriculum as a freshman, but because they come from so many different backgrounds, everything has to be constructed at home. And so there's no sort of set formula for what you can do. There's not any clear precedents you can set. So, that is time consuming, but it is, it's helpful that from my point of view, it's helpful that they made the integrations part easier. Because from my experience, that was the block for transfer students.
And it's, right, just as Jim said, right, they're coming in with a wildly crazy situation. I was working with one psych student that it was like they have all their upper division psych done and none of the lower division psych done, right? And the chair's just like, what is happening here? So it just takes a lot of grace. Poly psych certainly is not an issue. So yeah, other questions?
Typically, if I'm sending a student your way or trying to help us to do some planning, I'll try to have an integrations curriculum review done before you see it, so you can more easily develop that plan, knowing what's left for integrations curriculum and how that fits into your major. I try really hard to have that part first.
I sometimes have to bargain additional things with other departments.
And I appreciate that you do that.
From an advising perspective, I'm the point person in our office. When Terry makes some of those referrals, they come to me, and so I'll have that conversation about integrations and then refer to the department chair. And especially if they come early in this process and they want some pre-planning, then there's some opportunities there. When they come on our doorstep, I've got 5 or 6 transfers now, thank you, Terry, that I'm working with, and so I'm shuffling them to chairs to give some feedback on past transfer work. And I've seen chairs that, sometimes there's ways to accommodate. There's summer school, there's some independent studies, so there's some sort of catch-up provision I hate to generalize, but some of the sequential majors, some of the science areas, are challenging just simply because of how they're set up. I appreciate Matt, stepping forward and helping us out with their area, because that certainly is a sequential area, but they've got a pathway that college students to finish on a timely basis.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right.
Awesome. You want to just advance?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
slide? And then I don't have to know, thanks. Put me on the camera.
Oh.
Thanks. So yeah.
Short and sweet from the study here. A little bit of background, I think, in terms of sort of why this is top of mind for us in the study. Over the summer, as I was getting the department up and going and really needed student employees, some really good friends like Terry Durbin here would say, hey, this student would be awesome in your office. And so she referred a student whom I hired, who is now our student manager. And she is a transfer student, one of those DUs, the kids out of Colorado. Really fantastic. And so she and I have been brainstorming based on really drawing a lot from her experience and her conversations with peers in the Transfer Student College Success class about what we can do in the study to support this a little bit more. So these are our 3 things, because 3 is as many as I can remember. So our first one is really just a welcome message. So I'll be coming to you, Terry, for this soon. And the message is it's from the study and it's also from that student, from Sam Dietrich, to say, hey, I know what this is going to be about for you. I've been through it. We're here to help you. We're glad to have you visit us in the study. And carrying that toward the visit stage, we've talked about creating space in the study to welcome transfer students where they can hang out. And really what we're working toward is something like periodic transfer Tuesdays, where she is working in the study at that time, and potentially we can invite other transfer advocates to be in the study on any given Tuesday. It might be, hey, come hang out in the study for Transfer Tuesday. Jim Reed from Political Science is going to be there. Ask all the questions you want, kind of thing. So I think that's something that we can easily launch in the spring semester as another part to kind of intentionally welcome and get to know students. And then the last piece is really related to that differing experiences, right? There's not one set of adaptations to make coming from every other school to here. So it's really about me and my staff being attuned to the range of the adaptation that transfer students are making. Some are just academically sliding right into it. They know the game. Game is not meant to be pejorative. They just know how to do it. But might instead be struggling to just make connections in student life. Right? And while that's not our role, we can help connect students with one another, with previous transfer students, and with other resources. That's what came from the study. Thank you all very much.
Well, my name is John Kendall, and I have, over the past 3 years now, had the honor of teaching the transfer section of College 105. Okay. And Rashad here has agreed to come and talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. He's going, oh, great, here we go again. What I would like to just quickly do is build on what Robert said. If you take a look at the slide.
Advance the slide. Or is it?
No, it's this one. It's this part. I want you to see what is being planned to go into the new 205 class. Okay? So this is where this comes from. Is that 2 years ago, I opened my big mouth and I said, when there was in the spring, 2 years ago, there was the college unsuccessful class, the people that failed. Sorry. And the transfers were put together. Yeah. And I objected, and Carrie Shane looked at me and said, "Oh, so you want to do 2 sections?" Sure. So I did, and I think it worked out pretty well. Okay, as far as separating the college success repeaters, and the transfer folks. Okay, so that morphs into regular college success folks, and as the curriculum develops, as we're working with transfer students, we found that they needed some extra help getting through getting through the semester, getting through the curriculum. Integrations 205 does these things. It's for transfer students only, okay? And transfer students from where? From other institutions. This is not for PSEO folks. This is not for college and school folks. This is for people like Rashad, who's coming from somewhere else. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Then we did that for a couple of reasons, and Robert touched on that a little bit. We would like to do this AB mod so that the transfer students are done. Okay, so that they can get through it and be done. Okay. It's a 2-credit course now, which gives us double the amount of time, okay, to create more of a learning community that we can work with the study to create that academic community for more inclusive academic work. It creates a little more academic continuity than once a week. I get to see them, depending on when it's scheduled, either 2 times a week or ideally 3 times a week. I would like to see it. Okay, the integrations curriculum outcome in this class, information literacy, will be working with the libraries. Metacognition will be working with hopefully their brains. And as Robert talked about, the Benedictine Raven is a natural bridge into our community. And so I will be reaching out to most of you here for ideas and things on how we can, I have my own ideas, but how we can integrate those 3 things. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. The next part is the College 105 outcomes. Working with Carol Daughters, we decided that the personal well-being, that's the 4th outcome in College 105, we could be rolling into developing a meaningful life, okay? So for a little older student who probably is a little older coming in, we thought that maybe that would free up time so we could talk about the liberal arts here, developing the meaningful life, which is XPD and the connection, and the academic and professional advising, working with departments, a little more intentional, okay? To create this a larger learning community, or a more effective learning community. Check.
So would the instructor of 205 also be their official academic advisor?
No. We're working that out. I get the dubious honor of teaching this class, so I know what's sort of going on, but yeah, we're working that out.
And we may have to have an ongoing conversation. But
yes.
I'm the one who makes the assignments, and
correct.
Normally, I'm referring them to the department chair to get that conversation rolling, because if we don't, it could be catastrophic in terms of delaying graduation. If they're exploring, then I tend to slide them to John, because there is that flexibility. But if they have declared a major or identified a major, I sort of like to get them in conversation sooner than later. And I'll work with them too. I sometimes, especially if they're exploring, sometimes I'll mix and match with John and myself, just to make sure that John does a wonderful job. So you. I tend to, now that I can trust them, I give him more.
Great.
Will they be automatically enrolled in the future, or is it a program for you just set an arc? Will they be automatically enrolled in 205 when they transfer?
Yes, they have.
I believe so.
It will
So,
be-
so that we can, so that the integrations curriculum can be fulfilled, these three things.
Yeah, I inherited a student from somebody else as I became chair who had been a transfer student, who thankfully Yvette took in last minute for us this semester, who was supposed to graduate this spring and had not taken it. I don't know how that happened, but that would be easier, just knowing that it's going to be an automatic enrollment.
So we have a student cap?
That's part of the study, so that they could get, oh, you mean a capacity?
No.
Oh, I see.
We're not used to our winners, so we gotta.
At this point, no, just because we don't have huge numbers.
Yeah, for spring it's much smaller.
Right.
Well, but, so this is talking about next fall. I'm just thinking, right, we have 2 transfer centers.
We do,
right now.
we do.
And if there was a way that we could argue an advantage, like, hey, if we have 30 transfer students, this deserves 2 sections, that's gonna be valuable.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus, we're gonna be reading, we have regular assignments, we have regular reading assignments, we have to fulfill these outcomes. So,
Yeah, I would think
Bit more
with
rigorous.
30 students, you cannot give them the individual.
no,
attention.
absolutely not. You're absolutely right. We haven't crossed that bridge yet, or blown the bridge out. Good. Other
Josh,
questions?
it
Yeah.
seems like this class is the one place where transfer students get to meet other transfer students. Can you share a little bit about how you manage that and what that looks like in class?
How did I manage that? I made you all talk to each other. I mean, there are some. We did. Sort of ongoing, easy stuff to easy interpersonal strategy, interpersonal communication strategies. Made them talk to each other. Made them write together. We made them take off with the regular 105 classes. They had to go explore stuff, and they did the same thing. So with a partner, so you actually have to get to know each other a little bit. But this is the type of community building that we wanted.
And having it as a 2 credit and A/B mod, it's going to be much more intensive than the typical 105, where you're only seeing each other once a week. This is now a full-on course for the first half of that semester.
Right. So, okay, hat off, workshop hat off. I really think this will be fun for instructors. I really do, because I'm using you as a prop, Rashad. They want to be here. And I mean, not that our other students don't, but these students do. I'm digging myself a hole. Keep going. But thank you. They want to be here, and at least that has been my experience. And they want to interact. They have made the choice. They made the choice to go somewhere, and then made the choice to come here.
It's a really intentional decision.
Yes.
And I think that, and a focused decision, I think that's really important.
And that is also part of the pushback, as we found in our class. That was a little pushback in that because they are very intentional, they're coming in going, why the hell am I going to take this class? Why do I have to take, I'm looking at Pedro's class, why do I have to do that? So we talk a lot about the liberal arts, and this is a BA, this is not a BS. And we have other things that are important to us, and so we talk a lot about things.
There's a lot of BS in that.
Yes, there is, and we try to honor that BS. All in the BA. And in the BA, so that's cool. So, other questions? I think this is really exciting. I really, personally, I do. Can you? Yeah. I'm just loud. Other questions?
And I'll tell you, it is an amazing thing to share with a transfer student who's considering us, to say, you have this really intentional, focused place where you can meet other people, learn about who we are and how you fit into who we are, and how you would then capitalize on that for your whether it's, 3 semesters, 4, 5, or 6 semesters.
I would just say on the basis of having taught 105 once, I would be more likely to teach 205 than to teach 105 again.
And that's, yeah, I
think John's covered in that.
I kind of am. I mean, I'll do the 105 too, that's fine. But this is really, this has more guts to it. This has, or at least it could. It could have more teeth to it. That's good.
And Michelle didn't have to change color.
From Indiana. That's right. I would like to introduce Rashad Sharma he comes to us from Indiana University. Yeah, if you want to stand up for just a little bit. I had 4 students on Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, I had 2 students. At 2:30 today, we have Rashad.
I feel like such a celebrity in the presidency. Kind of Professor Kendall wanted me to talk about the transfer process and how it kind of worked for me. So my story was I originally started off at Indiana last year, and kind of right when I got there, I didn't feel at home kind of. It didn't feel like it really resonated with me. And right away I kind of thought about transferring after visiting here and talking to my friends here. And I was in contact with Mrs. Durbin towards winter break. And she said everything worked out and I didn't get accepted. But then she said also that if I wanted, I could take an extra semester in Indiana and always just resume my application. So I got kind of really bad with decisions. So I decided ultimately I'll stay at Indiana for 1 more semester, see how it goes. And I stayed another semester, it was fine. But over the summer, just towards the end, I started thinking, and I was like, I think I should transfer. I think it'd be a good choice. And this is just 10 days before Indiana started. I emailed Mrs. Durbin right out of the blue at like 2 p.m. on Tuesday. I'm like, hi, can I transfer? I kid you not, within 10 days, my whole application got reactivated. I had my dorm, I had my classes, I had my student ID, I had my meal plan. Like literally in just a little over a week, everything worked out. And that tells you about how quick and easy the whole transfer process is. So I was so uncertain when I first started applying to St. John's. I thought, what's going to happen? This is probably not going to take a week. It might be a few weeks type of thing. It might be really behind with all my classes, but everything worked out really good. And that's all thanks to Mrs. Durbin and her staff. So that made the whole transfer process really easy for me. And right after transferring here, I'm not going to lie, it's really hard for a lot of transfers since all universities are really different and have different courses, and it's just hard mixing and matching in a way. But a lot of my transfer credits, I think it was kind of because of luck. They worked really well with the integrations curriculum, so I'm not too behind. But I definitely know students who are a little bit behind or who will have to take an extra semester. So that's kind of hard for some students. But luckily for me, I've kind of been spared that. But I think that the whole transfer process in general here is really good because I'm so happy that I was able to get here finally and everything just worked out so well. And I was in Mr. Kendall's class and we had a lot of activities. I remember one day I was like, oh, Professor Kendall wants me to walk around at CSB on a nature walk today. It was so good. It was a like community building exercise. At first I thought it was a little bit lame and I didn't. But I actually had a lot of fun. I got to be with other transfer students. That kind of showed me about what a special place St. John's is. Because at Indiana, for example, we never had such big community building. It's kind of like you just got them, just threw you in with everybody else, and you had to do everything for yourself. But here, since the minute I got here, I was with the same transfer students at an orientation. I lived with them, I passed with them, I got to hang out with them a lot, and then we had all these extra things we got to do together. So it made everything so smooth and so good. So I'm really thankful I ended up coming here because I felt really lost in Indiana, and I feel kind of like this is home already. So thank you. Figured it out.
Questions for Rashad?
What's your major here?
So my major here is I'm trying my best to double major in accounting, finance, and global business. So that's what kind of makes it a little harder for me to transfer with that. Mr. Welch gets a lot of fun emails from me.
And Barb Nova.
Other questions?
So if you, let's say you were in, an English class, would some transfer students rather not be not have the professor reach out and like be identified as a I mean, sometimes I've reached out to transfer students and they've been really receptive, but sometimes I get the sense that some transfer students like just want to be like everybody else and don't want to be single. Like, I'm not talking about publicly in the class, I'm just meaning communications from the teachers. So, I mean, is it easier for you when the professor knows you're a transfer student and reaches out, or would you rather be the person to make that contact?
No, I think if a professor knew you were a transfer student, that would really help because they kind of understand kind of the hardships that you're dealing with, and they kind of know that it's a little bit difficult for you at this particular moment, just figuring out all your classes and credits. So it would feel good for a student to know that their professor's kind of on their side with that. And you had a question also?
I was just going to ask about what were some of the rough spots for you or for other students that you noticed as you were incoming as a new student? Like, just what struck you or other students as being a rough spot?
Oh, yeah. For most people that are transfers, I've noticed one thing is kind of socially here because a lot of people, you're a year late, and I think this would be at every school basically if you're transferring. Everyone's kind of got their social cliques together, and socially it's a little bit hard. For me, it wasn't hard at all since I knew so many people coming in here, and some of my really good friends in high school in here, so they introduced me to everybody. But I can definitely get for some other transfer students who don't know as many people, it's kind of hard just figuring all that out socially. But except for that, I wouldn't say any problems. There are not really that many problems. For some people also, it is difficult getting the integrations curriculum done because that does add a little bit of stress and it's extra classes because at other schools, you don't necessarily have Benedictine Raven aspects and justice and movement and truth aspects. So that makes it kind of difficult. But except for that, everything's pretty smooth.
And I would just add, I think it's more difficult with a spring semester transfer than a fall semester transfer. In the fall, there are roughly 1,000 new students coming to campus. In the spring, there are 25 to 30 new students coming to campus. So to be more sensitive to that, to what's happening in the spring semester, that there may be, it's just less of an awareness that there are students who are new to us.
I have a question for your shop as somebody who spent some quality time at Indiana University. And really also wanting to honor that. Right? Sometimes we get focused on how can we make things better. But I'd like to hear from you, what was already good? What did you gain from that first experience that really gives you an edge here?
What I think I really gained was at Indiana, I had a lot of relationships with people outside of just Minnesota. And I think that was really good to see all the different cultures blending together. That's something that here there's mostly just Minnesota people, which is pretty good because I'm from Minnesota as well. I did like the aspect of knowing things from people all over the country and some people from even other countries and just getting to hear all these different opinions and different types of foods that we eat. Like, I don't know, it was so different from New York to Texas to California. Everyone's got different accents. I'd always get made fun of for having a Minnesotan accent. So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Any more? Alrighty, thank you everybody. Thank you.
I'm still up here. So I do this, I've done this the past couple of things. If you want, you can go. If you want to stay, great. But if you don't, you don't have to. I'll pay you later. Thanks, man. On the last day of class, I asked my students to write a very quick note, the transfer students in this, to write a real quick note. Don't mess with security. He said, Rashad writes on his don't mess with security. And I'm like, what does that mean? Okay, yeah, there's a story in that. But some things that students wish that they had been told, and they could write it down. And I have all of the raw PDFs. If you want, I have PDF them. I took their names off of them. But I left their universities and or colleges on it. But these are just some of the things that they said. In terms of, so U of M student, the staff is incredibly helpful. Now, I would read other things into this. So if the staff is incredibly helpful here, I would say that the student would say that the staff wasn't incredibly helpful at the University of Minnesota. Okay, so The IC, integration is great, is a pain, but perspective diversity is worth it. Talk with advisor early, attend involved. This I thought was interesting because we've gotten mixed feedback in 105 about, oh God, you make us go to these fairs, oh I hate this, blah, blah. The transfer, and this is not just one, there were two, one from the University of Denver, I think one was Sam, but attend an involvement fair and the academic fair. Go, folks, which is interesting. Prep yourself for participating classes. Transfer process is easy, both from Century, two from Century College. Need more bio tutors, I don't know what that one meant. But I like the next two. Fresh fruit at the refectory and food is better at Iowa State. Or food is better here at Iowa State. IC again is frustrating, but advisors are good. Get out of your dorm. You can read the rest of them. Don't mess with security. You will have to take another college success class. This is one of the things that we are trying to solve with this 205 class. In not necessarily making it the 105 class, but the 205 to honor and to put some more academic teeth in this. So we are being, at least I think we should commend ourselves. We are being at least a little proactive in listening to students here. One last thing that I thought was interesting, as far as I also asked this, as far as what they're interested in, and when they come, what are they interested in general? So we talk a little bit about creativity, scholarship and creativity day, and what would you like to present to your colleagues involved? What do you see yourself presenting? And I just made a list, and I thought it was a very interesting list. I had to look up what a diathlete was.
What is that? I didn't know.
It's an athlete that has diabetes. And I have no idea what that is. Okay, so I thought that was interesting. We have some junior hockey players. I had some junior hockey players here, and very interested. I mean, some of the things. So you can take a look at. I just wanted to give you some context that, other than they're here to do a specific thing, they are interested in adding to the academic life here at the University of College. So I thought that was really interesting. I have these raw PDFs if you would like to see them and glean through them.
I can put them on the team site.
Okay.
Well, names are removed.
Okay, yeah, all the names are removed. Or I can send them to you too. So that would be awesome. So, any other questions for me? Sorry. I know, and Mary Jo's going, come on. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, John, let's just do 10 minutes. And I'm only supposed to have 5, so I'll do it.
I'm 28.
Okay, this is a lot of words on here. One of my colleagues told me, my sister Lynn, who used to teach here, said, Rachel, it's supposed to be 6 words and 3 bullets. I'm not going to read all this. And she's not here to boss me around anymore anyway. So, but this is just some research that was done by the woman, Judy Johnson, Minnesota Transfer Council. And so it's more for your digestion, and I think it's more for what we're trying to do as an institution for advocating for transfer students. Just not all departments know who transfer students are. Like, I get a flag every time someone comes in, and I'm sure you do that for every department, but not the rest of my department doesn't know that. So I think I love the idea of the welcome letter from the student, welcoming them to the campus and to the department if they do it. Well, even as a prospective. I do a lot with prospective students too, kind of along the same lines. Write a welcome letter, highlight the students' colleges. So this is more maybe departmental or class-wise. Maybe not call them out in class, but at least acknowledge some of their past experiences, like Rashad just had. You know, I think that's good for them to be included and not just assuming that they're up to snuff with everyone else. Transfer students to share previous experiences, review policies, review major, and then, like I said, this is more for reference. What I really want to get to is the checklist that you could use, I think, as an advocate. But this is some of the things that I think, again, institutionally we're trying to work towards. The most common credits students get, of students come as juniors, they want to finish in 2 years. I work a lot with Terry and I work a lot with Jason Kelly about begging for, like, please let this count for, and for us in education, it's integrations curriculum. Well, we have such a packed major that we don't have a lot of wiggle room, so integrations curriculum requirements sometimes get in the way if they bring in a course that our students get in a course that they would take on campus, but since we're giving them credit from another course, they have to take another course to get the integrations curriculum, so that's where it gets complicated. And everybody's been really, Jason's like been really helpful. I mean, we want the students to come, and so if they have to miss one course here and there or do a substitution, that's what I do a lot of with them. Equivalencies, like if we're seeing a course that sounds good and like Bart Novak reviewed it or somebody, I try to go and fight for it. Like, okay, you know, I did the syllabus and I show it to our department and chair and we try to get one more credit or class pass. Repeated courses, again, that might be an issue for some students. And again, this is I think Terry's already talked a lot about the pathways and how we're trying to create more pathways for students from 2-year institutions. Like she said, I think most of the students I've worked with have come from other 4-year institutions, but I am really excited about trying to do some road trips with Terry to get, or the next person is, to get some 2-year, we have a 2-year pathway for education, and I think a lot of departments do. Just getting those students here, it'll be a different experience than the Rashads and the other 4-year transfers. But anyway, this was what the majority of them, I think I was really supposed to work on, was a checklist that we are going to have to send out to you. I was trying to get it to duplicating and got delayed in the process, but just some of the things that I do when I work with prospective students, transfer or not transfer, but just if there's an opportunity to meet with that student before they come, if Terry sends me one that's thinking about coming, I try to Zoom with them, or if they're on campus, I try to meet with them. Most of those students transfer from other institutions, know their major, they're coming in. The pathways may not, or pathways will obviously know their major. They'll have 2 years done towards it. Talk about the credits, encourage them to send out their transcripts because that's where the hang up gets when they get in classes in the spring, if they're coming in the fall, that they didn't really need, or, you know, the double of an integrations curriculum because we're going to give them credit for something. So it's really important that they get those transcripts into the college and Terry. I always share a plan, a 4-year plan. I have one for every possible education configuration. And now that's easy to do with them all on the website, on the academic advising page. Review classes to register for. After they've arrived, again, meet with them within the first couple weeks, ask if all their transfer credits of what they were expecting transferred successfully, ask what support they need now that they're here, engage in conversation about other resources on campus, the study, XPD, academic advising, any labs that they might need help with for their classes. And then continued support for the transfer student down the road, follow up with them a few times throughout the semester, suggest a few activities, get them engaged, provide resources about all the different resources on campus, and be sure they're connected with their major advisor, so it's a little better for you. So that was kind of quick, but really I was only supposed to have 5 minutes and John took way too long. But we will get this checklist off to you in a nice little laminated bookmark type thing, so you can have it at your disposal and share with your colleagues. But if anybody have any questions about advocacy?
I just am wondering if there's been any conversation with, I don't know if it's the academic affairs, academic advising, but automatically sending lists to chairs of transfer students and departments. I mean, I don't know how other chairs are at the beginning of the semester, but I've got so many to-dos, and I usually do the schedule planning right away, and this just slips my mind. So if it doesn't come to us automatically, it's very unlikely.
Yeah, that's something I can do.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Absolutely. I actually made a note about it because a lot of chairs know because I've connected the transfer student, but they may not know who actually submitted their president.
Yeah.
Who actually arrived.
Yeah, I have reached out to you in the past.
Yeah,
happy to do that.
I think it'd be better if it was sent to chairs automatically, and that would be much less likely to have that.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Great suggestion, thank you.
Yeah.
So, well, in addition to that, I'm speaking to the nature of the chairs. Back in your previous slide, you had something about somebody connecting to the transfer student before they show up on campus. To my knowledge, I've never received any information about an incoming transfer student.
Well, I have just because
Yeah.
Terry, Mary Jo, I need help with the education because education's so, like if they're transferring and they're behind and they want to get done in 4 years. So that's the only reason I have. But maybe that could be, I don't know, if other
That
people
would be
want.
really useful if you have, somebody's an incoming potential political science major. We can talk to them about what classes to sign up, rather than discovering this in the middle of the semester.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, we only know about this if there's a question about their schedule, typically. I mean, people do reach out if there's a schedule question or a transfer credit question, but that, I don't know at that point if I am also sort of officially a transfer advocate, or like, I don't understand how we get from here to the thing that you're talking about. Yep.
So I think a step would be if there's an advocate in every department, that when you have a student that's interested, even before they've enrolled, that they would get connected with an advocate, and the advocate would do some of this, four-year plan type work with the information you have. I don't know, that's how I work in my department, but I don't know if that's feasible.
I think that's a perfect transition to a time for you to talk to each other, because like I said, I think we're building the airplane as we're flying it. So I think that is the central question. A big question is, should it be the responsibility of the chair, or is that just too much on top of everything else that they're already doing? Could a transfer advocate just be a general transfer advocate, like in a holistic way? Should a transfer advocate be a major advisor? And could that just be like, would there be an English advisor who's the transfer advocate advisor that's not the chair, right? So I think nobody knows. And so I think we get to be the ones who say, this is what we want transfer advocacy to look like, and then.
Okay, I thought we were ready. Sorry.
Here's the deal, nobody's telling us anything right now.
We're gonna tell you that you get to decide.
Nobody's telling us anything. Okay, then I'll tell you that. Well, then I'll decide, I'll tell you as so.
There's room for us to date.
We don't.
Okay, I didn't know if you were like laying out the plan or. Okay.
No.
Okay.
So that's the next slide.
Alter the plan.
You're ahead, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, let me go back.
There's never been a plan.
There's no plan. Yeah. So this idea of what is a transfer advocate role and what is a transfer advocate responsibility is a real question. We don't know, and we get to create it. Now, I've looked at transfer advocacy programs at other institutions and how it works at big state colleges and how it works at small liberal arts colleges, but we are us, and we have really unique needs of transfer students, and that's why starting with transfer student stories and our transfer student stories is the most important thing. And then building a transfer advocacy program that's going to work within our current structure is really important. So knowing what's actually already happening for transfer students is key. And then how can we tweak that? What do we want to make it better? So you guys being here is it's service. It's completely voluntary. As of right now, there is no transfer advocacy salary, course release, like expectation about your job. It's not in the faculty, promotion requirements or anything like that, right? So we get to build it and create it. And I think we're in a unique position because we all are obviously really passionate about this, and we want St. Ben's and St. John's to be an inclusive place where transfer students feel a sense of belonging and bring those different perspectives. And we're the ones, it's kind of like we're preaching to the choir, right? We're the ones who do honor the knowledge and experiences that they bring. So I really see us as the army of transfer advocates who are going to go out onto campus and like I said, codify it. So the question is what do we want it to be? So one idea, and we can kind of play with this, is to think about it in terms of your roles. So people here, obviously some are faculty, some are chairs, some are in like XPD, we have advisors. Is it more helpful to have like one larger discussion where all the roles are represented? Or would it be helpful to get into smaller groups with like 3 or 4 people where you all share the same role to brainstorm a list of what would my ideal transfer advocate responsibilities be as a chair or as an advisor? Does that make sense?
So I think I would like to hear from the whole group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think that, as a whole group, we're diverse enough to be able to answer this question.
Awesome. So I think it's a big question. I think the idea of, we're not going to actually create a checklist today, but we can get some ideas, right? And going back to this, a lot of the things on this checklist were provided by Judy Johnson with the MPCC, and these are things that they already know are effective for transfer advocates, but that doesn't mean that we have to do these. So we decide what is going to go on to our checklist. Yeah, go back.
Question. Because I already emailed you. XPD wants to have a list of transfers so we can welcome them and invite them. And I'm like, everybody in this room might be wanting to do the same thing. So if I'm a transfer student, do I feel inundated in a way like, oh my god, I'm overwhelmed, I don't want to talk to any of these people because they're all emailing me. Or is that like, whoa, cool, all these people want to talk to me. So yeah, we're gonna do it because I want to like make sure they know who we are. But I just also had that thought.
That could be built into the curriculum of 205.
Yeah. Yep.
Right, so the first 2 weeks, we're working with advising, we're working with admissions, things like that, making sure all your credits are transferring in. Now you're working with XPD because you're doing this, that, and the other thing, right? And it's just built into that curriculum and the flow of that course where they get to touch all the different parts on campus.
I think some of the nuts and bolts of the plans and the things can be taken care of by Mark and Terry. So when it gets to the transfer advocates, it's more about support. And that's kind of how I envision it. That everybody in every department would be cranking out plans.
Sarah.
Yeah, so John, I just have a question about the transfer 205 class. So with the information literacy being a piece of it, is it, are you going to be, is it like requirement for learning foundations and explorations where you have a librarian come in? Or-
Yes.
Thank you.
I have just a specific suggestions about the roles within the department. One is that it should not be automatically dumped on the department chair. I think the department, it should be something the department chair can take on if he or she wants it, or delegate to somebody else. And I think that would work. That other person, you can say you can do this instead of your assessment responsibilities. That would be a good draw. And then the other thing about meeting transfer students, I think we could treat this the way that we treat meeting prospective students. I mean, when there's a prospective student who's interested in political science, somebody's, either get it directly from admissions or pass along by the department chair. Can anybody meet with the student, right? We could do transfer students that way. You wouldn't need one particular person to do it. It can be whoever's schedule happens to fit on that day, and that way the workload is spread out among the department. So I would really piece it out into like 3 different roles: the department chair's role, a transfer advocate, which is not necessarily the department chair, and then anybody in the department who's interested in doing this can meet individually with transfer students.
I guess I'm trying to, I think what I'm about to say might be diametrically opposed to what but it's, I guess the thing that I think about is not necessarily opposed to what you were saying, is how to end up with some sort of one-stop shop for the student, because I guess I do worry about students. I agree that like if the department chair is not always the best person to advise everybody, not always the best person to be meeting as a transfer advocate, but they are the person who deals with transfer credit questions. And so I guess whatever we do, I want to avoid a situation where the student maybe has an academic advisor, a transfer advocate, and then both of those people say, well, I can't answer this question, you need to talk to the department chair. And I think that might be that would be somebody's responsibility where, you know, you're a transfer student, academic advisor or transfer advocate, like you need to do that like work to talk with it, you know, so that I'm just worried about the student getting passed along to a bunch of people or having to meet. I mean, I think Mark Schmoder reached out to me about a transfer student in my department, and I did reach out to that person, but I also try to be sensitive of like, this is the first 2 weeks of school, they've already met with academic advising, you know, they've got a lot of balls in the air. Do they, like, when do they need another meeting with me and when? So I guess those are, I don't have a good answer to this, but I don't want to end up with a student feeling like they're being thrown around, basically.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about last year was defining what we mean by efficient referral.
Right.
And for some situations, it's, I'm sensitive to both scenarios here. When a student just simply needs to be in their intro to political science, that's a different question than they're 3 courses or 4 courses deep into their major. They need to see someone in the department, the chair, or whoever's going to make the decision on those credits, because they will be confused. And when you get into trouble, and believe me, I hear it from them or their parents 2 weeks in that we misregistered them. It's because that conversation didn't happen. And education is very good because students know they have to get this sequence properly or it's a done deal.
I think the department chair in any case is going to be making those decisions about what counts. Because otherwise you'll have total chaos if every single member of the department is making decisions.
Could the transfer advocate be the triage?
Yeah.
And that might take a little of the burden off of the chairs. That it would come to the transfer advocate, and then if the transfer advocate can't do it, then invoke the chair. I don't know, I've never met chair, so.
So I know one of my questions is the transfer advocate sort of this holistic person, but it's the one contact for the student in a department, and it's the transfer advocate who then goes to talk to the chair to, you know, like facilitate all these other conversations. And I think that might be easier for the student, but then one thing I know that we try to encourage college students to do is to advocate for themselves. And, you know, so is this a case where, nope, they've already done everything they needed to do to transfer, so anything you need in education on the transfer advocate, I will, like, literally walk you to that office, you know? Or is that okay? I think it's okay. I think they deserve the gold glove treatment. But I know that we often, you know, like when I have my own advisees, you know, I will say, okay, this is a great question for the registrar. I'm going to show you how to ask these questions and who to ask. Because part of it is helping them learn how to navigate the system on their own too. So we don't want to, you know, take away that sense of independence.
Well, I think as Rashad said, our system might be different than the system they're coming from. And so understanding, at Indiana, he may not have been able to go to the chair. That might have been 3 steps further down the line. Here, we're saying, well, go to the chair and figure out how they're going to help you find that advisor that meets your needs or the focus you want to have in the major or whatever. It's sort of helping them navigate what may be very different from what they're used to.
Well, somebody needs to tell them that the chair is the person that they need to go to, because they might, that's the kind of thing that they're not going to know. You know, all they're going to know is who can count these courses. And just to tell them that that's something you go to the department chair for is useful information. They can go to this. I mean, I can say, you know, make an appointment to meet with the department chair or email the department chair, but how are they going to know that that's the person to go to? I think that's the kind of thing that a transfer advocate can do here.
Do you think that in the first couple of days of that 205 class that we bring the transfer advocates in?
Yes.
You would be willing to come in and say hi?
I think, in my opinion, the earlier the better, because I got 3, including Rashad, coming in right when I'm trying to advise all my other 40 students. And they're a whole lot harder to deal with than my other 40 students. But it's all a super busy time, and it'd be a lot better if I had them 4 weeks earlier.
We'll just move them up.
Yeah.
Is this an ask that we have to make? So when students are assigned to you for advising, is this a specific ask that you are the transfer advocate who does advising? So instead of having 40 advisees, you have, you know, 20 regular advisees and 10 transfer students. You know, that it's part of that load, so it's not on top of.
Well, in my department, I assign the advisors. So
Okay, so you don't assign yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's because of retirements and people left and stuff, so everybody has 40 or more.
So I just want to put in, right, we're really focused on a very, very small piece of the transfer experience. And at least my experience working with my 105 transfer section this semester, how stuff transferred, the academics, advising, all that stuff, were not really problems for them. There were a few of them that very early on, I just put in a ton of work with them. And then like everything was set at week 2, right? And I don't want us to get so focused on that. Right, Rashab hit this point, and my students very much echoed this point. The biggest barrier they face is feeling like they belong on campus and connecting with the campus. And I think that if we're gonna really make a big difference, that's gonna be one of the most important things.
And peer connections.
Yeah. Peer connections with other students. Not just like, okay, I know this study, I know XPD, I know the libraries, I know all these things. No, like making friends.
Pedro and Kristen.
Two things. One was about the first conversation now about this too. They're related. Could it be that we have transfer advocates and the chair in communications? Like, so all communications go to both a transfer advocate and the chair, right? So then each department can also have a different way of dealing with this, because it's different from accounting and finance to political science to a department that has even less faculty and less majors, right? So that's one thing, right? From that perspective, and then two, that's a question. How many do we want in each major, right? Each program, right? So I'm assuming that we want at least one in each department, right? But for example, again, in GBUS, in nursing, we need more, way more, right?
Well, most transfer students are enrolled in business. How many nurses do you have? I have 1. I have 3. Okay. They're it's like half of business, and then they're kind of all over the place. So that's the real big one, and then all the rest are just kind of a mix.
So I think we have one in each department, so if one pops up, right? But then we need to kind of really make sure the departments that are the biggest ones which happen, right? Because that's the other thing too, like, that'll be a good way to even try to get them connected with other students is by having advocates who know students in the same area, right?
I was just going to say, sorry, you raised your hand.
I was going to say, if you could identify who those transfer advocates are for those folks and how they're connected to them, and if you have more than one in GBUS or whatever, and you can have those so they were listed on their support network in the Hive, so that the student can easily see who they are. And we can see who they are and help to refer them, and that may be the same person as the chair, it may not. But that's just something so that they can easily know who that is, and if it's an addition to or different than their faculty advisor.
Well, I was just going to say in relation to what Robert was underscoring, that, I mean, the reason why I wanted to get involved with this is because prior to being at St. John's and St. Ben's, I was at Marquette, and I lived on the floor with the transfer students, and also did a lot of work with students that were thinking about leaving. And I just know that, like, a lot of those students the year before had a really stressful year, you know? So it's not just like they have social stress when they come here. They're coming off a year where they felt that this exciting college that they've been looking forward to their whole life, like, didn't work out. And some people make that transition really easy and are just optimistic, and some people need some help processing. So for me, like, when I think about my role as a transfer advocate, I mean, obviously you want to help students with this class and, you know, but I don't want to be an expert in every, you know, my interest is really like, how do you know, I think transfer students have different needs, and I do think that some of them are not only like just reiterating, not only are they finding a social breakthrough here hard, but last year they did too, and so kind of helping them, you know, process that change. I don't know if, and I don't know, do we ever help students here who are thinking about leaving here? I mean, is a transfer student just a student that comes in here, or do we ever help people that are thinking about transferring the other way?
Yeah, there is a process for that. That's outside of the admission office, but there is a connection from an academic piece and a residential piece before they transfer out. There's sort of an exit interview process.
I would say in advising, there are some students who I met with every semester about their thoughts of transferring, clear up until they graduated from.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna, I was just gonna say, looking around the room, there's a number of staff outside of faculty and outside of departments, and I think I think there's a large number of people that aren't even in this room that'd be willing to step in and be that more of that holistic kind of, I won't say mentor, but really be that point person to help advocate, whether it be teaching them to fish or actually walking them over to the pond and fishing, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. So I think, I'm definitely in agreement and on board with more of that holistic kind of, because there's a lot of great skills and strengths here that we all share in that piece.
We had Sarah and then Tracy.
Oh, going back to Robert's point too, this might be something that we have to involve with student development, but to make that connection, for students to make that connection, could they develop a club? Could they get funds to go traveling? Because I know this was something that your students brought up last year when we went with them as well, is that, it's harder for them to make those connections when they transfer in. And so if they, and that's one of the things where if they can have a support group for that they can discuss, and maybe an advisor or somebody that oversees it like a club, that might be helpful for them too. And then at that point, if there's our questions, the advocate can help them. But I don't know, with this would be one more thing on somebody's load, and I don't know how that would work.
There's student employment money. I think about the near peer advisors. We're great people, but we're older. And so I think about somebody like Rashad who might, he'll persist, he'll be successful. Is there student employment money so he could be a mentor? He's a peer, he's a mentor, he's doing it. It's the AIM model, just replicated, right? Because we're great, but students.
And I think in some ways that's what's happening with Sam's position of the study. She has, our organization has the official responsibility to do some transfer outreach for the students. I think avenues to expand that are going to be really important. And to expand it, I think, beyond transfer students, who are the students who started here day one, who are interested in transfer students.
You set up a Boundary Waters trip when I get there. That's the bonding thing for a lot of them. First you're taking it now.
I actually did that as a transfer student
Oh,
here.
okay.
With four other, but I went with 4 other first year students.
They are welcome to start.
We've also talked about, taking advantage of 205 and developing that kind of transfer community. As a transfer student myself, one of the things that really helped me was there was a dedicated space office on campus that was transfer space. It served no other purpose than it was just a lounge for transfer students. Which at first you're like, yeah, whatever, and then you're like, hey, this is kind of cool, right? But then ultimately though, and the students have been very clear about this, they don't want their own separate community. Eventually they do want to become part of the St. Ben St. John's community, right? And so we can't lean too heavily into that and make it that this will be your community and it's a subset of the larger community, right? There needs to be that bridge of okay, when you first got here, we made some new friends, we're all in the same boat kind of, and now let's meet people. And I think ideally, having people come and meet them.
I think that's important, having worked in residential life and watching our transfer students over here and watching different efforts that we did on and off, trying to hold a transfer orientation with different opportunities like that. I think having the 205 class will be really helpful. I think that's great. And it's going to connect them to each other really well and some of the things we talked about. But I think that's one of the big concerns and the hurdles that they face is how do they connect to that bigger community at large? Not necessarily, partly with the awkwardness and the struggles that they've had, but also because our community, you know, it's always that fun, hot, and awkward, or fun, friendly community, whatever. But it also makes it challenging to break into when you weren't here from the beginning. And so what Robert just said about getting, kind of finding those ways to bring our current students to meet them and incorporate them. And perhaps as transfer advocates, part of what we can do is knowing those opportunities kind of that were up on the board, that you were kind of surprised that they said go to the fairs and things.
Yeah.
But that's part of it, is go to the fairs and things, right? Because that's how they can get connected to our current community. As much as fairs and things might be overwhelming and maybe not something that everyone wants to go to, but try and help them and talk to them about what are those interests that they have. Are they interested in the Boundary Waters trip? Do you know about the OLC? And so, you know, it is some personal time being put in to help them through that. And so how it can be across campus as transfer advocates do that. But then it seems like maybe if there's a more connection and intentional actions on our part to connect with them, that's maybe outside of advising in, it's more advising in the social realm, right, than in the academic realm. And I don't know.
I think we need some sensitivity to, and I hope this will be a transition that shifts. Right now, the students that are transferring are students who never expected to be new again, somewhere new. And that goes a lot towards what you were saying. With the pathways, as we develop those 2+2s, we're gonna also have a group of transfer students who fully expected to be new again somewhere. And now they're maybe more concerned about the academic piece of it, where they're trying to make sure everything fits. So there's going to be a dichotomy of what that transition looks like as we build the 2+2.
So, and I think that, you know, right now where we're at, most of our transfer students are coming from four-year institutions, not expecting to transfer initially. And then they end up coming here, and they're all over the place. I think that the 2+2 is a great way to really grow our transfer population. And one of the things that I would love for a transfer advocate to do is to be ideally connecting with those students way before they're coming here. If they can self-select, like, hey, I'm gonna be doing this 2+2 pathway as like a first year at SCTCC, if they wanted to major in math, or even if they may have wanted to major in whatever else, like, I'll go and talk to them. And if we can regularly connect with them and have socials on campus of like, hey, you're gonna be a transfer student, come and like do an overnight on campus, and like you're already part of the community even before you're part of the community, right? And reaching out to them and talking with them and like making sure, you know, that one of their biggest concerns is graduating in a reasonable amount of time. And if their professor from the institution they're gonna transfer to is already coming to them and being like, yeah, here's your four-year plan.
Yeah.
Taking these courses at SCTCC, you're gonna take these courses at CSPSGU, graduating in 4. We got this. See you in 2 years.
And connecting with the faculty members at those places.
Yes.
So faculty members here may have a concern about what those classes look like in comparison to our classes. Faculty members at the community colleges also have concerns about, are you really going to take the class you said you were going to take? Are you gonna pull the rug out from underneath them and say, you said it would take 2, but now you're adding a semester on because you. So there's concerns on both sides of that window. We need to be respectful of that and create that communication as well. I think would be helpful.
So I think this is why we're here, but like, with all this conversation, then I'm asking, so what is the role of the transfer advocate? Right? And I feel like that there's a clear curricular aspect to it, and there's a clear social aspect to it, right? Do we want all transfer advocates to be well versed enough on both? Or do we want like an academic transfer advocate in a more general transfer advocate, right? So, and I'm sure like Terry, you also research other places too, and I have no idea how this works anywhere else. But from these conversations, that's kind of what I'm getting, like, you know, the social part is going to be important, and, you know, as staff is mentioning, staff is with students way more than faculty are, a lot of times. You all know a lot more of what's going on in their lives than we do. So we do need a lot of staff to be part of this too. But when it comes to academics, you know, faculty get defensive and turkey, right? You know, if it is about the curriculum, that we should be the ones making, not just making decisions, but even giving the advice, right? Yeah, how are we, I don't have an answer, it's not another question. How are we thinking about this? Do we create two separate kind of like, ways? And what exactly is, like, do we do a training and then, and we become one? How does that work? So, yeah.
This would be a monumental task, but if we could identify common courses that our transfer students typically take in their first semester and try and get them into a course with a transfer advocate. Because I think one of the challenges we're going to run into is the same challenge we're facing right now with first year advising. If you don't have your advisee in your class and you don't know who they are, it doesn't matter how many times I email them, they're not going to respond. They don't know who I am, right? But if they're taking Pedro's class and they know Pedro is my transfer advocate, and I now have that relationship with him. Because what has been happening is that John and I have been doing that with our students, but we can because we're there with them. They know us, right? And we're building that relationship. And I think that that's going to be a key component, is that relationship needs to be built. Now, if it can be built prior to them coming,
Especially
right?
those 2+2 students. Right.
Yeah, for the 2+2 students, right? If, say, Pedro is meeting these students for 2 years and they're coming here, well, shit, they're gonna find him, he doesn't even have to ask them. But they're gonna be like, hey, I'm here.
I mean, they'll find out when it's tall, but.
Yeah, they just look up.
So many thoughts. I'll try to contain myself. To maybe just this one. Terry, you talked about, like, do we walk them to everywhere they need to be, or do we say, here's the information of who I am? I think it's yes and. And the thing that we are really great at St. Ben's and John's is if you talk to a person and share your question, they will help you figure out what's next. The thing we don't do, maybe so very, is empower the students with the information up front. So, if this has been built and I haven't found it, tell me, but I feel like, transfer students and the rest of us could benefit from transfer advocacy website that has, key people in key departments, the checklist for what students do, like, here's what you can do to settle in more firmly, which is a conversation I could have with students when they were transferring out, but sometimes not as much when they're transferring in. And then to say, like, if you're looking for, if you're transferring into major in GBUS, like, here's the person in GBUS who's like extra excited to see you. And then the rest of us, as we meet students, can say, do you know about this page? Look at all this fantastic information, because they won't necessarily find it.
Yeah, and so I know we had scheduled this to go to 4:30, so I understand if we have to get going. So I'm going to compile our notes, and as of right now, because you've attended the training, you're a transfer advocate. So you're going to be on that list.
Sucker.
So the other thing is, though, is we've not had transfer advocates come from every department. So I'm going to reach out to personally invite people to meet with me to say, can I put you on this list? Here's what we're thinking. And I need to talk to someone about how to get that website. Like, that was my question. Where do we post this list of people? And a very short list of expectations at least. And I'm going to separate for now the idea of the chair handling everything that has to do with transfer students in a department. Because I think that's what I'm hearing, right? So as the chair, I like the idea of the chair and the transfer advocate being the two key people. But the transfer advocate is the front person who will facilitate all interactions. And it depends on the student to how much, like hand-holding, not that I mean it that way, but, they'll need. So I think at the very least, that's where we're at. I think we have some good ideas for roles, responsibilities, and it's all a negotiation right now still, so please don't hesitate to give feedback. I'll send the notes out. I'll see about getting a website up, and if you don't want your name on it, just let me know. Otherwise, your name's there.
Do a website or Canvas? Do a Canvas page?
Well, the advantage of a website is people can see it before they're in
I see.
class.
You got it.
Who do I talk to about a website? Mark.
Good luck.
Mark? Oh, Mark.
Marketing.
Wait, I'm saying,
No.
okay, thanks.
Oh, that's
Thank
Yeah, it's a favorite.
I think it's with
Yeah.
GeoCities.
And if anyone wants to talk about transfer, wants to gather more information, I'm always open to have. I work on both campuses.
Do you have a sense of how many